Moving ahead to our next session, we have Malini Goyal, co-founder of Unboxing Bangalore Foundation. Malini has been working on building Unboxing Bangalore Foundation since 2021. This is an initiative to capture the hustle and vibe of Bangalore, the city of new beginnings. In her previous avatars, Malini has been a business journalist for close to 3 decades, with stints at India's leading publications, including The Economic Times, India Today, Forbes magazine, and a brief stint at Seattle Post-Intelligencer in the US. Today, as she joins us for Quorum, she will delve deeper into how to unbox a city. And joining her on stage after her address will be Sumathi Chari, Senior Partner and Director at PRHUB. Malini, please.
So good afternoon, everybody, and what a pleasure to be here. We have, of course, met. Many of us have met professionally in my 25 years of journalist career. We met you, or I've met you, or maybe the brand that you represent, or the spokesperson that you have interacted. So we have a long relationship, a complicated one sometimes, but a long one. So look forward to this conversation. One of the things that I wanted to do right now is sort of talk about our Unboxing BLR journey, the book that we are. And in fact, Amit, thank you so much for organizing the book here, making it available. Greatly appreciate, and thank you for having me here, Amit, Amita, and the team for the same. Now, before I dive in, there was something that I wanted to ask. How many of you have been born in Bangalore? And how many of you have not been born in Bangalore? Okay, so here it is. This is what the city is all about, right? Many of us, we were born, we grew up, we have our roots in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and then we moved to Bangalore. And we started our careers, we started our lives, our profession, our startup. We did a lot of things. I myself did it, after 25 years in journalism and 35 years in Delhi, right? I came to the city 3 years back and completely rebooted. I moved away from journalism, started doing something very different, and of course started a new life in this city. So in many ways, this book that I'm talking about, The City of New Beginning, right? That's what this city is about for many of us. So we'll dive into that in a bit. So there are 3 parts to the conversation. One, I thought we'll talk about the book. The second thing is about Unboxing BLR Foundation, which the startup, not-for-profit, that I'm the founder, along with my co-founder, Prashant Prakash, that you may know of. And the third bit is the Q&A that we'll try and sort of take you through. So why don't I sort of dive into the book and yes. So this is Herb Caen, right? He's a columnist at San Francisco Chronicle, and then he spoke about San Francisco, a continuous love letter to San Francisco is his column, and he says, a city is not gauged by its length and width, but by the broadness of its vision and the height of its dream. And this is true not just for San Francisco, but I think any city. I mean, it's equally true for Delhi, it's equally true for Bombay, the cities that I've lived in. But coming to Bangalore, I know that this is especially relevant for the city. I mean, you look at the city's infrastructure, look at city's roads, and it tells you something. But I think when you begin to live here, the city reveals itself in sort of very interesting ways. And this city is so much about how it imagines, how it dreams, how it looks at the future, the ideas and the dream. And that's what at least I've discovered while living here. So it's a small video that we did on the book.
In the universe, everybody knows Bangalore.
जो बैंगलोर है ना, बैंगलोर कर्नाटक है, बहुत सुंदर जगह है सर, सभी लोग रहते हैं इधर.
I feel it's a very chilled out city.
Bangalore is a city of hope.
I think it's a city of ambition. It's a city about the future.
First word that comes to my mind is freedom.
City of comfort.
I've always been very grateful to the city.
Home.
Belonging.
Harmony.
Where tech happens. The new Silicon Valley.
Reminds me of London. The best place to experiment is Bangalore.
A city of first generation entrepreneurs.
I won't exchange this for anything else.
So this, I've written most of my professional career, but this was the toughest, but this was also the most beautiful writing that I've done. I mean, very, very intense, over 3 years that we did. So let me just quickly take you through the journey of the book. From the very beginning, we decided that when we look at the book, it has to be a 360-degree view. I was a business journalist, and I could have just used the tech and business lens to look at it. But this was, in our mind, a contemporary biography of Bangalore. And if it is a contemporary biography of the city, it cannot have one siloed view of it. This was challenging, right? I mean, being a business journalist, again, we had a very top-down view of it. We would typically meet CEOs. I would typically meet CEOs, founders, CXOs to write my stories. And this journey of the book really began at the bottom. So when I came here, at least first 6 months were spent on the streets, at least 4 slums that I spent time on. The entire world that sort of is not visible to us, the parallel economy, the world of drivers, Ola drivers, delivery boys, security guards, cooks, all that, is spending time to understand their lives. And that was very, very critical. And I think now that I look back, it was probably the best decision I did while reporting on the book. A top-down view of the city would have been so skewed in many ways. And of course, 600 in-depth interviews across the board. And I think, I was an outsider to the city. And you can say that, so hence, I came with a handicap. I didn't understand the city, but looked at it differently. I had no biases, no views on the city, except for a very limited period that I looked at the city as a startup hub. And that was probably the great part, that I came with an open mind and had conversations with people. Now, if you read the book, and I'm going to plug this, Unboxing Bangalore, published by Penguin in November. But the book is a contemporary narrative of the city, biography of the city, and the focus is since the 80s. But there are many themes that you might find it resonant and contemporary, and I brought some storytelling from my journalistic career to talk about. I'm going to flag 2-3 of them that you might find particularly resonant. Is There's a chapter called Young and Single in the City, and I enjoy doing it. I mean, spending time with young people in the city, trying to understand their lives, patterns, dating, love, romance, everything, their dreams, their nightmares. I mean, that was wonderful, especially because that's a world that typically one doesn't, at least I didn't get to see, so I spent a lot of time. There is a chapter called Startup Couples, and I'm not going to give you too much of it, but you should go read it. It's a quite, and at least I enjoyed sort of putting it together. The third chapter I'm going to plug in is Networks and Mafia. That is the chapter that I found most challenging, and what makes this city a tech startup city? What is so different about it? Look at Bangalore and, look from outside, the potholes, the road, traffic jam, all that makes headline. But yet, year after year, the city remains India's startup and tech hub. Investments continue to happen. There's something very, very special about the city, and, this talks about that. And then through all this, try and understand at a psychographic level, at a behavioral level, at the kind of flavors that shape the city. The book dives into that. So maybe we'll dive a bit more during the Q&A with Sumathi on the book, but I would love to sort of take you through our journey. The book was just a seed, right? And it sort of triggered very, very significant scale up. And we are now a not-for-profit, city-focused, Bangalore-focused platform, doing multiple things. And all this has happened over the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, typical of this city, how things scale up. So this is, in December, we did what we call the City Festival, Unboxing BLR Hubba. We had 3 months of time to do it, but Prashant, the co-founder, was very, very keen that we do a soft launch. And I was quite hesitant, to pull off an event like this, and we had very modest expectation. The only expectation was we will have a steep learning curve, so that year 2 will be better. So we decided to dive in, but it turned out to be beyond, much, much beyond our expectations. There is a video. So this video just sort of sums up. Let me just... Okay, so that's what it was. We didn't expect this to happen so quickly, but I think that's the beauty of this city. Everybody just came together. The government, the partners, the not-for-profit, people just volunteered and made it happen. What we know is this year, 2024, December 1st to 15th, when the Hubba happens, it will be bigger, better, much, much better than what we had. And in next 3 to 5 years, it will be India's and probably Asia's largest city multicultural festival. That's what we are targeting it to be. That's the big one that we did, and it's an annual city festival that we are trying to sort of build. But there are many other things. There's a data report that we are working on currently with our partner, How India Lives, and this definitely sort of comes from my journalistic background. We were trying to sort of understand Bangalore through data. And as I was working on the book, we figured that, there isn't current relevant data that is available on cities, all cities actually, but particularly so in Bangalore, because the city has changed so dramatically that 2011 census seems like really, really long back. The city has changed beyond our imagination. So, this is an interesting data report. It's again an annual thing that we are building, and it'll be out soon, and it's deeply researched. Of course, we'll use different data sources, including digital platforms, satellite data, government data, regulatory data, to be able to put it together. And many of you will find it very interesting, especially being in the communication space, what this data could possibly do for the city. This is a museum, India's first startup tech innovation museum that we are building. It's still on the drawing board. It's a public-private partnership that will work with the government and other stakeholders in the city. But the only thing that I can tell you is this is going to be world-class, very immersive, very, very modern, very contemporary in its construct and the kind of technology we'll sort of bring in to do it. And this museum will celebrate India's and Bangalore's journey on the tech map. We don't have it right now. I mean, the only reference point we have global is the Perez Center for Innovation in Tel Aviv, and in Seattle, there is a Jeff Bezos Innovation Center. But I think we'll leapfrog on technology and all that as we do that. We've got a lot of love from media, and our Hubba was very, very sort of widely covered. We got a lot of sort of coverage, and especially what was special for us is this post office, right, where they sort of referred to Unboxing BLR and why they were able to sort of, the Postal Circle reboots its annual philatelic exhibition, and they credit to Unboxing BLR that they were able to do it. So some of these things like give us a lot of pleasure, a lot of happiness that we've been able to do. But this is a journey for us, and we have just begun. I mean, how did we all make it happen? So some of the prime sort of brand attributes that we are leaning on is we are going to be extremely collaborative, and most of our projects would not have been possible if we were not collaborative. And there are things that we have learned about collaboration, so probably we could come back to that a little later. Two, we've also learned that most of the things that we do, it's a two-way exchange, right? We are going to be extremely interactive platform, engaging with the city in a two-way level, right? And we are going to be changing very rapidly. This is just 13, 14 months of prep that we've been able to envisage some of these projects. But there are many more, like, there is a World City Culture Forum. And World City Culture Forum is a global platform of 40-odd cities that come together to deliberate on range of issues, like London, New York. London Mayor is headed by them. So Bangalore joined World City Culture Forum last year, and Unboxing BLR sort of took the city to that platform. We want Bangalore to have a seat at the table when cities sort of deliberate their future. So that's one project that we are looking at, but there are many more in the pipeline that you'll get to hear going forward. I think I'll wrap here, and we'll do a Q&A on the book, and of course, any other question that you have.
Hi, Malini.
Hi, Sumathi. Hi.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation that we went through. Before I delve into the book and peel the layers further on a city like Bengaluru, quick question, and you did speak about, for most of us who are communication practitioners in the room, of course we know you more through all the articles in TOI and ET, among others, and pitching to you. how different is writing a book from writing stories in newspapers?
So difference is at two levels that I would say, right? So one is more the day-to-day logistical. So with writing a story, it comes to an end pretty quickly. You write, you have a deadline for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then it ends. Book goes on. You know, it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. This book began the journey in early 2020. Even before that, actually, sometime in 2019. And it took more than 3 years to put it together. So the fatigue sets in, the burnout sets in, but you are not able to. I didn't take off for 3 years, okay? And because you couldn't mentally ever switch off. You're always thinking about the book. In fact, you are many times dreaming and having nightmares about the book. You know, things that you missed, things that you got wrong, or things that you could possibly do. And I remember that, you know, I have a WhatsApp group with myself, which I call self. And middle of the night, I would think about something and I would record that message for myself. Oh, I missed this in that chapter, right? So that was one part. And it's also a very lonely journey, very solo journey, right? For writing as a journalist, you know, you have your editor, you have the anchor, you have the sub-editor who's working on the copy, you have the team to work with. Here, you are like working solo, and for a very long time. I think those two were the biggest challenges that I dealt with. And I was doing my first book. So you could say I've written for 25 years, yet, you know, it felt like imposter syndrome that they talk about. I did deal with that for a month. Can I write this book? Can I do this? And there were sort of, you know, short stretches of that self-doubt. But all that, you know, it ended well. This second bit was coming to a new city and writing about it authoritatively, right? That was a huge challenge. But it was a challenge I totally relish. I think one was looking for that kind of challenge at this stage of your career when you've, like, you know, you're jaded, fatigued, writing business stories and all that. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. So those were the two things I thought was very, very different about the city, about the book, writing the book.
Sure. The second question that would probably be relevant to many of us here, over the last few years, books have emerged a very important medium for building brands, both personal brands as well as company brands. And I'm sure there was some bit of thinking that went into the book being an important medium for the entire initiative of building brand Bengaluru. So can you talk a little about how you see this, and, you know, what does one need to factor in if you were to consider a book as an important medium?
So I think, you know, it did three things for us. One, I think building credibility, okay? At least for me, in the business world, in Delhi, probably people knew me, right? But when I came to Bangalore, I don't know how many people knew me. Maybe they knew the byline and in limited circle. So one, coming with no baggages and working on it. So building credibility was important, right? Like we are here for good. This is not a flaky coffee table book. This is not a, you know, it's a deeply researched, authoritative book. That helped us build that credibility. Two, particularly for me, because, you know, Prashant, who's the co-founder, I know he has wide network, he's very plugged in, all that. It helped build network in the city, right? It was a very, very important thing. And three, I think it also established us as something, not doing just a glossy capturing of the city, right? It's a honest capturing of the city, not city has its flaws, and all cities have flaws. Delhi has its problem, Mumbai has its problem, Bangalore has its problems, and let's confront that, let's acknowledge that. And I think we come across as a little more honest and credible because we confront that. So when you talk about brand building, I think those were 2-3 things that we were very, very cognizant of, that there are things not okay with the city, and we'll be cognizant of that as we sort of document it. And we definitely wanted to be apolitical as we kind of went about looking at the book. And deliberately, we did deliberate, right? I mean, Prashant is deeply networked in the government, he's worked very closely with the government, all governments. And we took a call that we'll let it be apolitical in its reportage, in its perspective, and I think it was a good decision at that point of time, and it still is.
Yeah, you know, I've grown up in Bangalore, my schooling, college, all of it, and I've just been trying to read different chapters of the book before our discussion as well. And I think there's so much of it that we do not know despite being in the city and having grown up. It's just popular perception, and I like the way you've gone bottoms up and delved into whether it be an iconic institute like IISc, but also so many other smaller stories from inside the city and the cultural fabric of it as well. But that brings me to, you know, my next question, because we do have like, for example, a very successful neighboring state and Kerala, and how they have built the brand more from a tourism perspective, and many have been doing this over the last few years. Destination marketing from a tourism perspective has become important. Building brand Bengaluru at this juncture, because we've seen it grow from, you know, a pensioner's paradise and a garden city to, you know, the Silicon Valley of India, to the startup capital. And then, you know, interestingly or unfortunately, the last few years, the only conversations that probably one has when you go out of the city and talk about it is the potholes and the traffic and the congestion. And we have just been ranked last week as we beat Delhi with the highest number of private cars, and that's the only thing in the news, right? So what do you think it takes to build, you know, a city's brand at this point of time and at such a juncture?
So 2-3 ways to react to that. One, I think what you're speaking about is the nuanced conversation in the digital era, right? I think we often miss that. Either things are black or things are white. There are no shades of gray in today's world. And especially when the conversations are happening in the digital bubble of Twitter, social media. So hence, either it's all the terrible things, the flood, the traffic jam, and potholes that make headline, or you know, everything is so great about the city, right? So one, in terms of, and our attempt is one to sort of take a fuller perspective, now have the nuanced sort of conversation on the city. And if you look at the range of things that we are doing, it's either a book or either data report that we are talking about, or the museum. All these are very deep, ambitious, difficult projects. They are not easy projects, they are very long term, and we are here for long term. And I think the brand building that you're speaking about has to have that approach, a more long term, honest conversation. And then here for the long term to make the difference, and we hope to make that difference. One of the things that, at least I coming from Delhi, right, when I looked at Bangalore, it only appeared to me as a business journalist as a tech startup city, right? And I didn't know anything, or I'm exaggerating, but you know, there are things beyond that the city had, which I had not experienced. And my view was very, very unidimensional. And I think now that when I look at the city, there's just so many layers to the city that one was not aware of. So with many of our initiative, I hope we are able to sort of get the word out, right? And there would be different ways to do that. One of the challenges that, you know, especially which is relevant for Bangalore, it's relevant for all cities, but especially true for Bangalore, is the city is changing so quickly, so dramatically, that reality and perception often have a huge sort of gulf between them. And it's a challenge. How do you do that? I mean, data is telling you something, right? If you look at the population data of Bangalore, and census is the only probably credible one that you'll get. It tells you, I don't know what's the number, but it's massively under-reported. And the city is somewhere else. It's 15, 16, 17 million today, right? And it applies to virtually everything that you look at. So how do you bridge that gap? And what can be the contemporary, accurate, in-depth sort of understanding of the city? So that's our approach to how to let the world know, not just Bangaloreans. Even Bangaloreans don't understand their city. The city exists in multiple silos. There is a tech Bangalore, there is a non-tech Bangalore. There is an old Bangalore, there is a young Bangalore. There is a Kannada Bangalore, there is a non-Kannada Bangalore. And we all know so many of us are not born here. And I don't think we all understand each other so well. The silos we don't understand. So the HAPA that we did, right, our intent is to break those silos and bring people together. One of the things, one of the highlights, at least for me during HAPA, was we had something very beautiful, music in the park. And we got government permissions. We had, I think, 8 odd parks across the city. And we were doing music between 6 to 9. And they were free access. And beautiful evenings in Bangalore weather. And you saw the kind of crowd that gathered there, right? Old and young, people you could make out from different social income class, right? And they were all together enjoying the musical evening. I don't think it's something that happens so naturally and so easily. And that's something I think we deeply cherish, to bring all city stakeholders together to make things happen for the city. So that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, I just said that, right? Like for many of us who have been in the city also, we have a very unidimensional view, largely shaped by media stories in the last decade as well. But I'm going to quickly, from what you said, read a small, very small excerpt from the book and then ask you my next question before we open it up for audience questions, right? Will Bengaluru, its founders and its startups be ahead of the technology curve or behind it? In the constantly evolving world of technology, that's a game hard to predict. The only thing predictable, however, for cities, as much for startups, founders and workers, is to constantly update and reinvent to stay relevant. Bengaluru has managed this for the last 4 decades. There is a saying that you can't step in the same river twice. Bengaluru is like that, constantly changing. It has never been a city about status quo. Fortunes and success in this city are volatile and fickle, and it is this ability to constantly refresh itself that sets India's tech capital apart. The book actually cites, and the name says it all, that Bengaluru is a futuristic city, and I think at the book launch, someone interestingly from the old world Bengaluru put it very nicely, saying it is a city that constantly looks ahead and at the future, and that's the reason why it has been able to transform itself in so many avatars over the last few decades. When you went and researched on the book and actually wrote this and put this together, how important do you see, that future forward-looking element as important to building a brand for a city as we move along? Let's say over the next 5 years, what is it that will shape the narrative for the city?
So one of the things that at least I sort of figured when I came here is that how dramatically the city has changed. You don't realize it. And so many conversations that I've had, and people say, oh, 1980s the city was like this and now it is like this. So in 40 years the city has changed. Then somebody said, oh, in 90s it was like this. Somebody said 2000s it was like this, and the city has changed. Time span could be from 40 years to 5 years, and yet people are talking about how dramatically the city has changed. And one of the conversation I remember I was having with Nandan Nilekani, right? In 2009, he kind of shifted base more or less to Delhi when he was UIDI chairman. And then 2014, he came back to the city, like kind of again shifted base to the city. And then he was saying that in those 5 years, Bangalore had changed so dramatically, you couldn't recognize the city. So, that is the nature of the city, and I'm saying the Bangalore is, the pace at which the city is changing is so dramatic. But many of the things that is futuristic, that will shape India's future, our future, in the digital era, has begun, they have begun here. Think about the digital public goods, UPI, Aadhaar, right? Bangalore is the epicenter for that. EVs, right? Bangalore had not much to do. Either it's Tamil Nadu is the Detroit of India, or we have the NCR or the Pune belt. But somehow EVs tend to happen here, and you must wonder why. There is defense, okay? You don't hear about defense much. But as I was researching on the book, so in the defense sector, there is hardware, and increasingly software is becoming very important. Virtually all parts of software is being done here. You don't get to hear it, but the Ministry of Defense conducts annual competition for defense tech, and majority of the startups are here, from here. Ditto for space tech. So you do see that virtually different parts that would shape our future, which is shaped by digital economy, are already taking roots here. Now, will the city be able to sustain and grow? One doesn't know. Silicon Valley, right? The amount of funding that goes to Silicon Valley is been kind of coming down bit by bit, but it still remains the world's startup tech hub, despite its challenges and problems. This doesn't mean that Bangalore should sit back and be complacent. Only the paranoid survive, and hope the city understands that, hope the city stakeholders understand that, hope the political stakeholders understand that, because in many ways our cities are policy orphans, administrative orphans, so we don't have the kind of mayors that global cities like London and New York have. But hopefully we'll get our act together, fingers crossed.
Do end the book on a note on how Hyderabad is just behind us, and so we need to pull up our socks and do that. But let me quickly open it up for a few audience questions.
Hi Malini, my name is Neelima. I'm from PRHUB. I have a couple of questions. One is a direct question and one is the thoughts. First is, what inspired you to write the book, or what prompted you to write the book? And the second one is more your thoughts on Bangalore is losing its identity for many reasons, be it a language barrier or for whatever it is. It has embraced people coming from, outside Bangalore. Just your thoughts on these things, and how do we go about this? Yeah, thank you.
So the first one, the question, what inspired or sort of triggered me to write the book, it's there in the introduction in the book. But quickly, I was looking for a challenge at this stage of my career, and this felt like a fantastic sort of way to, fantastic challenge to confront at this stage, right? There are multiple reasons, and probably introduction would, I would encourage you to, and again I'm plugging the book and when I'm saying this, so those were the reasons and multi-layered reasons why I wanted to do this book at this point of time. But the second question, what was
how
that?
it's losing its identity.
Yeah, so losing its identity. If you look at all global cities, London, New York, Silicon Valley, even Delhi. Delhi is either nobody's cities or everybody's city. I think global cities, big cities, have to be a melting pot where everybody can come. That doesn't mean that we lose our heritage. That doesn't mean that Bangalore should just forget. And that's the reason why we have the Haba to celebrate it. But doesn't mean, it's not exclusionary, it's inclusionary. I think the cities, global, vibrant cities have to be that, a melting pot, an inclusionary city which brings everybody. And I think Bangalore has that DNA.
I think she had that. Good afternoon, ma'am. Like you said, you stayed in Mumbai and Delhi for a while. So what made you use your journalistic ability to peel back the layers of Bengaluru? What about Bengaluru's DNA, like you mentioned, pulled you to it?
So there are 2-3 things that stood out for me, and as I came here, I'll tell you a bit about how one experiences a city as a woman is very different than how one experiences a city as a man. And for me, that was a very, very powerful thing. And I'll recall an anecdote, right? We're short on time, so maybe I'll just quickly take a couple of seconds to answer. So this was in December 2021, and I had a meeting at night, around 7:30 in Bangalore. And it was barely 15 minutes walk from my place where I was staying to the venue, right? And I took the cab and went and met. It was like barely 2 minutes drive. Around 9 p.m. and I had to go back, and I didn't get the cab, and I had to walk. I was stressed, I was anxious, I didn't know I wanted to walk. It was a deserted, dark street, and hangover of staying in Delhi for 35 years where I would never walk at night, never walk alone, and especially on a dark, deserted street, okay? The hangover of Delhi definitely shaped how I viewed the city, and today I can tell you I walk comfortably without being anxious, without looking over my shoulder on dark night and deserted street. So that's a big thing. So that's one thing that stands out to me about Bangalore is safe, secure for women. Especially coming from Delhi, it definitely stood out for me. But there are many other things. I think this city is far more cosmopolitan, far more non-hierarchical, if I can say that, not as brand obsessed. You don't judge people by how they dress up, the car they drive, the brands they wear. Fairly, relatively egalitarian, democratic in how they look at it. I've dealt with CEOs all my life, and I can tell you there's a bit of difference in the way you deal with them in different cities, and those are the things that I notice here. The paid forward culture in this city, right? I think somebody will just step up and help you with no skin in the game, no transaction, just that you have a problem to solve, and somebody will just step up to do that. I've heard that story so many times while reporting on the story, on the book, and I myself experienced it. So it's a deeply networked city, highly collaborative, and this paid forward spirit. Those were some of the things that stood out for me. I'm sure there are many other things that I'm missing out, but I think we've run short on time.
Okay, thank you, Malini. So on that note, she's available for a bit if any of you want to talk to her after this. I end this on, a very nice foreword by Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw in the book, which aptly puts it this way, that Unboxing Bengaluru is the city of new beginnings, is a remarkable chronicle of a city's transformation. It's a tribute to the dreamers, the doers, and the visionaries who have shaped Bangalore's destiny. It is an invitation to explore the heart of a city that continues to redefine what is possible. So on that note, I know many of you got the book this morning, and I hope all of you take the time to read it. Thank you, Malini, and
thank you everybody. Enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much, Malini, for your time and the session today. Thank you, Sumathi, for the lovely fireside chat.